Alright guys, welcome back. Now let's have the real short session combat. And I have prepared 3 different sections for you. The first one is the knowledge recap. Prior to your examinations, you need to know some basic knowledges. And I have provided you with 3 different questions at least. But before we do that questions, we have to recap all those fundamental knowledges together. Alright, once again. And after that, the second section is the 2-dimensional syllabus. ACCA has divided SBL syllabus into 2 fundamental approaches. The first one is the technical capability. The second one is the professional competencies. These are 2 different areas to be tested. Technical knowledges will require you to put 80% of your time, and in your exam is about 80% marking. And the other 20% of your marks comes from the professional competencies, and we are going to explore further of that. And the third one is the marking scheme. During the marking insight, we are going to study some basic rules of marking. Why is that? Because you have to know how the markers and the examiners give you marks before the examinations. This short session, the purpose of this short session is help you to pass the exam. So the third one is also very important, very, very important. All right, guys, here we go. Right, first one, knowledge recap. I've prepared you with 3 different fundamental knowledges. The first one is the strategy. What's the name of this paper? Strategic Business Leader. So you have to know the meaning of strategy and how are we going to make strategies for the organization. That's the first one. And the second one is the leadership. It also because of the paper called Strategic Business Leader, SBL. We need to know as a leader, how are we gonna be dealing with those different situations? So we have many different leadership styles, leadership approaches, but you have to know that leadership and the corporate governance are totally two different way of leading the company. Leadership normally is about the style of the leader, but the corporate governance is the way that we manage the entire organization, right? But today, we will not be able to touch the corporate governance because we do not have enough time. But now we only focus on the leadership style, and it will be tested in your exam. And the third one is the culture. There only one model called Culture Web. It's from Fundamental Knowledge FB. Used to be called F1, ACCA fundamental paper. And we've learned the cultural web, but in your exam, you are going to use that knowledge once again in the strategy professional level, SBL. There are two exam papers with the cultural web. All right, I'm going to show you later now. All right, guys, here we go. First one, strategy. What is a strategy? What is a strategy, guys? Something very important for exam is to give a right definition. How are we gonna use English to give a definition of something such as big data, performance excellence, right? And maybe today now is the strategy. How are we gonna give a definition by using English languages? The key point is to identify the most relevant verb. Read the sentence. During exam, find out the most relevant verb or verbs and start making a sentence after that. Let me show you how. For example, if I want you to explain the meaning of the machine. Machine. What is a machine? Ladies and gentlemen, what is a machine? Find out the most relevant verb. Some student told me, perhaps Mr. Shuang, I think machine is something improve. Okay? So, let's make it a phrase. Improve what? Improve the efficiency, right? So, in your exam, use this way. Find out the most relevant verb and start making a sentence. For example, somebody asks you, what is a machine? You have to tell the machine is something that we can use to improve our efficiency, right? This is one way. But in my opinion, I think there's another way we can explain the machine. How about reduce? Right? Reduce what? Reduce the human effort. This is even better. Human effort. So, if you ask me what is a machine, I will tell you machine is something that we can use to reduce the human effort. Both are acceptable answers. These are all acceptable. Why I show you how to give a definition in your exam? Because of the questions ask you to do that. Let's check the questions from ACCA Global Office. The name for that paper is called Machine Shop. It's a marking scheme. That paper shows you how ACCA give you marks of SBL papers. Question number 3. Let's read together, guys. It's April 2018. You are an IT consultant at Merange, it's a French company. Following the board meeting at which Mr. Butcher, the director of the operation, first mentioned the greater use of IT. Your firm has been asked by the board of Machine Shop to advise on the use of big data and the use of IT in the procurement processes. So you are the professionals in a advisory firms or the consulting firms, whatever. So you have to be able to provide them with the relevant ideas. So, and the first question asks you to prepare two presentation slides with accompanying notes which explain the meaning of big data and how it could be adopted at Machine Shop's. Professional marks will be given for the communication. That means you have to construct the entire PPT slides, right? Entire PPT PowerPoint slides, and after that, put your definitions in it. Since we do not have the time for that second question, so I just skip it. Guys, I show you the answers of the examiners. This is a recommended answer, but you have, sometimes in your real exam time, you will be able to start your own answers. Now, this is just one recommended approach, right? You can use your own way, nevertheless. And let's check the first one, big data slides number 1. Examiner's answers like that. What is a big data? Let's find out the most relevant verb of that. Extremely large data sets, which may be analyzed to review. Review is the most relevant verb in the idea or the definition of big data. So if you put the review right here, after that, every marks will be yours. Review what? Review the patterns, review the trends, review the association relating to the human behavior, whatever, right? So got it, guys? The most important things to give a definition in your SBL exam is to find out the most relevant verb. Memorize it. All right, guys. So after that, for example, like a 3V, structure, unstructured, these are the other answers. That's not related to the definition. So giving a definition in your exam is something crucial. All right, guys. So now let's test it whether you can get it or not. Definition of a strategy. Give me a definition of a strategy. So I think you're trying to think about the relevant verb of that. Let me tell you, sometimes one verb is enough. Sometimes verbs. Let's read now. Verb or verbs. So one verb is not enough. Maybe you give me 2 verbs or even 3. So in my opinion, the most relevant verbs for strategy are 3. What are the 3? These are the 3. The first one is to determine. The second one is to allocate. And the third one is to achieve. What are we determining? Ladies and gentlemen, what are we determining as a strategy? We try to determine the direction. If you try to determine a direction of your campaign, don't forget. So verb, determine, plus a direction. Wait, direction. There's something missing between these two. What is that? Adjective, guys. Put an adjective right here. Verb, adjective, and a noun. So put it together. What do you think? If we want to determine a direction for the organization, think about it. Strategy and the decisions are totally 2 different things. Decisions is short term. Strategy is long term. So normally strategy will have 3 to 5 years, and we call them a strategy. Within that, for example, 1 year to 3 years is not a strategy. That's merely a decision. So what do we put them? Long term or short term? Long term. Very good, guys. Long term. See, that's it. What is a strategy? Strategy is about to determine the long-term direction of the organization. After that, allocate. What do we allocate? What do we allocate? Resources. Yes, I heard you. We allocate resource or resources? Resources. Multiple. Yes. What are those resources? We can have financial resource. We could have human resource, physical resource in terms of the machines or devices, equipment. And after that, intangible resource such as your intellectual property, your patent, your copyrights, your licensing agreement. So this is intellectual or intangible. And after that, natural resources. Some company controls your natural resources, such as the diamond company. There's one company called De Beers in UK more than 200 years ago, right? And the De Beers was the dominators of the entire diamond industry. So they control the natural resources. Some company controls the mine. Some company controls the coal. For example, like Australia BHP. There are three basic companies called BHP, Rio, and Rio Tinto. These are the three companies that controls the entire coal or mines in the world, right? So they control the natural resources. After that, something missing. What is that? To one organization, the resources definitely limited or unlimited. Yes, limited. So what do we allocate? We allocate the limited resources. And after that, this is adjective, this is noun, and after that, achieve. What do we achieve? Some students told me achieve a goal. Some students told me they achieve an objective, but they are all not correct. What do we achieve? Let's put it into SBL way. Your English must be professional enough. Achieve something called stakeholders' expectation and purposes. Is it better? Yes. Stakeholders' expectation and purposes. This is much better than your goal or objectives. This is something very clear, right? So, stakeholder analysis is something called Mandelo matrix. In your exam, will self-doubly test it. This is something basic, right? Mandelo matrix, like, for example, like a minimum effort, key players, keep informed, or keep satisfied. That model is from your fundamental level. However, expectation and the purposes are something very, very important in your exam. So, expectations and the purposes will be summarized into one model by myself. It's called V2MGO. We are going to explore the further of V2MGO model later on. However, let's read the entire definitions together. If the question asks you to give a definition such as big data previously, or performance excellence, or the other ideas, try to find out the most relevant verb or verbs. What is a strategy? 3 verbs. What is that? What are that? Strategy is something to determine the long-term direction of the organization, allocate the limited resources of the organization, and achieve the stakeholders' expectation and purposes. Okay? So this is finished, but this is the finish. So determine the long-term direction. We have a model for that. It's called ANSOF model, ANSOF strategy and market direction. We will not be touching that today, right? Maybe next time, perhaps. And then after that, allocate limited resources. We have a model for that too. The name for that model is Varied model. Varied model is for us to identify the resources and allocate the resources for the organization. And the third one, V2MGO. This is something I'd like to talk about it during this short session. It's something very fundamental, interesting. Let's read it together now.